Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another one of my Dota 2 hero guides. Today we're going to be taking a look at the build for Storm Spirit for patch 7.31b, and as always, before we jump into it, I just want to let you know that I usually suggest you follow the Tortellini or Immortal Faith in-game guides just for the item and skill builds, because they generally are correct and updated, but if you feel like they're wrong for any reason, you can go to Dota2ProTracker.com and see the high MMR and pro player pubs and see what they're building, what they're skilling, all of those kinds of things. So now let's just jump into the in-depth guide for Storm Spirit about how to build him, how to play him in general, how to think about him. He is one of the most popular mids right now, and I think he got really, really good because of the Null Talisman change and a few other things that solidified his build. So how do we build this hero? So the skill build is going to be fairly similar early on. This hero's always played mid, and level 1, you're always going to get Static Remnant. And this is because this ability does damage. It helps you secure range creeps and possibly do some harass damage, maybe if the enemy that you're going up against is a melee hero. You don't really want Electric Vortex, obviously, because that doesn't really combo with anything if you get that level 1. And then Overload level 1 absolutely does nothing because you have no other spells to proc this. So you're always going to get Static Remnant level 1. You're going to use this to secure some CS, secure your level 2 through the first creep wave, and then level 2 you're going to get Overload. And this is because these two things in combination now allow you to kind of harass the enemy, secure CS a little bit easier, these kinds of things. You can use your Remnant on the creeps to secure the CS. You can toss your Overload charge and a right click at the enemy, or you can use the Overload charge to secure CS as well. So that's pretty much how you're always going to skill the first two levels. Now, the third level is where things get a little bit complicated, a little bit tricky about what exactly you're going to do, because you can see here, level 3, you can skill Electric Vortex. This is the best time to skill it overall, like the first time at least, because when you use this, you can proc Overload. Now you have two abilities that can proc Overload. You can use all three of these in combination for a basic combo in lane, but you don't always want to be skilling this, because this is really an offensive, harassment, aggressive tool to use in the lane. It's not really defensive. You can kind of use it that way, but it's more like, hey, I'm against a melee hero, I'm against a hero I threaten, I can dominate this lane. If I just use Electric Vortex, you can get a good combo off and, take half hero's HP or more. This ability can really help you dominate lanes. But, some lanes you're just not going to dominate, and so it's better to actually just take more points in Static Remnant and then max this out like we see, and not really get Electric Vortex till maybe, level 5 or so, a little bit later, till you're going to gank. Because you probably want this when you're going to gank. It just makes ganking a lot easier, but you don't really have to skill it till a little bit later and get more Static Remnant levels so that you can farm the jungle a little bit easier, maybe another level in Overload, these kinds of things. So you can farm, the small camp, you can stack that, you can push out the wave a little bit quicker, because you don't really want to lane against, like the Viper or the Lina or whatever it is, and you're not really going to get a good combo off on them. So that's kind of the only real consideration in the lane, is when do you skill Electric Vortex. Now, if you do skill it at level 3 every single game, it's not like make or break. It's not going to kill your game. It just is one of those things that you can consider, delaying it a little bit. Then you're going to get, obviously, your ult at level 6 every single time. You're pretty much going to max out Static Remnant almost every time. There are some considerations of whether or not you get more points in Overload or more points in Static Remnant, but I would say probably every game you should just get Static Remnant maxed out and then go Overload next. I don't think it's too, the considerations just are usually patch dependent, how the skill works, how much damage it does. They're also matchup dependent and stuff, but I don't think you're really going to go wrong with getting Static Remnant maxed out. Then you're going to max out Overload, and then lastly, you're going to max out Electric Vortex. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple from there. So really the only consideration here for this hero is when to skill the first point of Electric Vortex. Like I said, you can get it at level 3, or you can just delay it a little bit till you think you're going to gank, because it makes ganking easier. You don't have to have it for ganking, but it just is a little bit better for that. So that's pretty much the skill build, pretty straightforward for him. Now we can go to the talent tree. So level 10, I would pretty much get the mana regen almost every time, because it's very good. But the 20 attack speed can be good as well. But I think we'll see later on in the item build that he does build items now that give him more attack speed, whether it's Treads, whether it's Orchid, that gives more attack speed now. So you don't necessarily need that attack speed early on. So I think the mana regen is just overall better. So you're pretty much always going to get the mana regen, but attack speed isn't the worst thing ever. Level 15, I know a lot of guides like this one say get the health, because the health is super valuable, and I think it can be good in some games, but I actually just like the static remnant damage. I take that a lot. I think that just makes your ganking a lot easier, especially if you're getting Orchid. I really like the static remnant damage because you can get static remnant off a few times in like a gank, in a fight. In team fights, you get it off, multiple times. So I really like this. It just amps up your damage a little bit more, just makes you a little bit more of a threat, securing those kills and those kinds of things. So I actually take static remnant damage a lot if I feel like I'm not being threatened, if I'm not getting killed, if I'm not like, there's not a lot that kills me. I feel like I can get out of a lot of stuff. Now, if I need to get, if I'm not picking people off, if I'm not going Orchid, then I might go for the 250 health if I feel like I'm threatened and those kinds of things. Then level 20, you can go for the cooldown. I think if you get the static remnant damage, then you can consider going the cooldown. Otherwise, you need to get the electric vortex talent because it's just overall better. And you're going to be getting ags on this hero eventually, maybe later in the game. It's just a consideration. So the electric vortex is just way better. And even if you did get the damage talent, the remnant cooldown just isn't as good, even for ganking and everything, because the fact that you can stun people for even longer with this hero is just really, really good. Like, you can kill people full to 0 with a little bit of help in one of your stuns. It's just kind of insane how long it lasts once you hit level 20 and you get that 4-second electric, or 0.4 second electric vortex addition. So that's level 20. Then level 25, there are actually two kind of determinations, or two talents here obviously that you can get, and a determination of when you get them. Two scenarios that make a difference here. The better one actually these days, I think, is the 2 overload attack bounces. It just is so good, and then when you add the shard in that you can potentially get, it actually makes this hero insane. You just amp up your damage like crazy. But the ball lightning, the remnant at ball lightning distance is still pretty good. It's just not as good as people once thought it was. But I will say, if you are losing, if you need to defend the base, if you need to clear creep waves really, really quickly, I would say you can get the distance, the ball lightning distance with the remnant. You can get that talent. But otherwise, if it's like an even game, or you're winning, or, you just need to do more damage, I would say get the 2 overload attack bounces. That's kind of the determination there. Are you defending base? Are you pushing out creep waves? Are you losing? I would say maybe get the left talent. Are you winning? Is the game more even? Can you still get out of the map? Or you just need to do more damage in fights? These kinds of things. Maybe you are still losing, but it's not like, are 2 racks down or something like that. Then I would get the right one pretty much every time. So that's the talent tree. There are some considerations there, but overall, you can't really go wrong with too many of these talents. And then now let's move on to the item build. So the starting items we see here for Tortellini is Tango, and then 3 branches, Fairy Fire, Observer Ward to place early. I would say this is generally pretty good. This is what a lot of pros are going, but I would actually skip 2 of these iron branches, and I would get more basically null talisman components. I would probably get 1 null talisman component instead of these 3 branches. I think it's just better because you're going to be building null talismans anyway, and I think you can afford to do that and still get a good bottle timing. I think you can still do that, get a bottle timing early, but you have static remnant to secure CS. Just make sure whatever you're doing, whenever you're playing a mid hero, that you are getting your bottle timing before 2 minutes. You usually want to have it in your inventory, your courier delivered it to you before 2 minutes so that you can get those runes. So that is a consideration. If you feel like you're having trouble, or you're going to have trouble getting CS in the lane, maybe getting these 3 and going bottle, it's just more gold efficient to only get 3 of these instead of like 1 of these and then a null talisman component. It's just more expensive. So in any case, that's the really only consideration that I would say here. Otherwise, that's pretty much the basic starting items. And then going into the lane, going into the early part of the game, what are you going to get? Well, you're going to rush bottle, like I said, pretty much every game. Then you have a consideration of 2 null talismans or 3. I usually actually like to get 3, but you're always going to buy at least 2. The old days of the patch, the previous patch 7.30, I think people used to get Soul Ring a lot on this hero, and I didn't really like it. I didn't really like using Soul Ring that much because of the health that it cost you, but that was the meta. Now, Soul Ring is just out of the meta. You just get 2 null talismans pretty much every time. I like to get 3. I think 3 is definitely worth it. It definitely makes the hero viable. The only problem with 3 is that it kind of fills up your inventory, but I think it's still fine. And the problem with 3 is it delays a potential Orchid timing. So if you are going Orchid, maybe look to only go 2, but otherwise, I think 3 is perfectly fine. Then you're going to go Treads every time. I sometimes like to go Boots of Travel in this hero, but I think now that you can get these null talismans and you want that attack speed, you can just do so much damage, and it's so much better to get Treads on this hero, so I get Treads. Magic Wand is a consideration sometimes. I would say if you're going 3 null talismans, I don't always go Magic Wand. It's still really good, especially if you're against a mid laner that spams out, spells and things like that. It's just one of these items that I don't personally always go, but I think it is obviously really good on the hero, especially if you only get 2 null talismans. And then the only real consideration from here is, what is your first big item? Is it going to be Kaya and then Sange? So, you first you get Kaya, obviously, and then you finish out the Sange, or are you going to go for Orchid first and then go back into this item? Basically, if you're not going to go Orchid as your first big item, you're probably not going to go Orchid in general. You're probably just going to skip it altogether. And the main consideration here is, can you pick people off with Orchid full to 0? Like, pick off supports. Are people trying to split push? Is there a hero you need to lock down? Or, is it just not that good this game? Are there a lot of defensive spells to, purge it off? Is there no one that you can really, go on? Does everybody have, like, defensive items or abilities? It's just one of these things. Is everyone way too tanky? Is like their whole team's strength heroes or something crazy like that? It's just all these considerations. Is it a good Orchid game? Can you pick people off? Do you need to like jump a Dazzle or something in the back line and silence him? All this kind of stuff. That's a consideration. If you basically, don't really want to go this, then you're going to go straight into Kaya Sange. Otherwise, I like to go Orchid and then Kaya Sange. If you do go Orchid, and then you want to go Kaya Sange, you do need to consider, well, do I need to get BKB right after Orchid? Because is there like a silence? Is there a lot of stuff that kills me? Do I desperately need BKB? BKB is going to be your second item if you desperately need it. Otherwise, you can go Kaya Sange and then you can go another item. You can go Orchid and then Kaya Sange. These kinds of things, that's the consideration. Otherwise, you need BKB second item. Once you have these two items, I would really consider getting BKB, unless I think it's just like a free game and I don't need it. Then I would consider getting a Lincoln's and even an Ag Scepter, basically. These are the two next items I would consider getting. Yules, I really hate getting Yules in this hero. If you feel like you need to buy Yules in this hero, I think it's just a bad Storm game. But if you have to get it, if it's like desperately that you need it, well, then you can get it maybe first item, because you need to, counter that silence from Drow Ranger or from Silencer or something like that. But I just hate getting this item. Also don't think Ethereal Blade is all that good. Don't get Witchblade. I don't really think Witchblade or Ethereal Blade are all that good. I just don't think it's that great on this hero. Then, lastly, the consideration after you get some of these items, maybe go BKB, possibly Lincoln's as another defensive item. If you don't need BKB, obviously, like I said, is Ag Scepter, and then all of these items. You can still go the Arcane Blink. I still don't think it's that relevant for the hero. You can finish out your Orchid if you have it into a Bloodthorn, or you can go Shiva's if you really desperately need armor and you like that AoE. There's illusion clears that you need to have or something like that. There's also regeneration or lifesteal things that you need to diminish as well, because that's what Shiva's does as well. Or you can go Scythe of Ice if you just need even more lockdown. Like if you already have Ags and you just want to go Scythe to just lock somebody down in the very beginning and the silence doesn't work. Let's say you have Orchid, or you even don't have Orchid and you need more lockdown, these kinds of things. I would also consider, there's one item on here that I think that is also included in this hero's kit that you can use, and it is pretty viable, is MKB. I know MKB isn't a traditional Storm Spirit item, but you can do a lot of damage with right clicks. If you need to right click people and you feel like you just don't die, there's nothing you need. You don't need more lockdown. You already have Ags or something like that. Maybe even your Orchid or your Bloodthorn is enough, which Bloodthorn is kind of a, if you need MKB, maybe Bloodthorn is good enough, but sometimes I actually just like buying MKB, turning this hero into a little bit more of a right-click hero, and that is a little bit of a meme. It's not like super meta, but for lower MMR players, I think even at my level, it can be pretty good. So that is pretty much the Storm Spirit build. Pretty straightforward there. Like I said, Null Talisman consideration, whether you go Orchid or not, whether you need BKB like second item, and then you can get Lincoln's defensively, and then you just basically go for these luxury items, and you can do so much damage and control from there with your Ags, with your Scythe, more damage with Bloodthorn, Shiva's really good for armor, these kinds of things. The last thing I will say is Ag Shard, you can just mix it in there kind of whenever. I don't think it's the best Ag Shard, but it is pretty good. If you have like right clickers on your team that can benefit from this, there's a lot of them, then you can definitely get this at a random time. I just wouldn't like get it at the expense of another item that you desperately need, like BKB and these kinds of things, but it is pretty good. So that is the Storm item build. Pretty straightforward. There are some considerations though that you need to think about when building the hero, but that's my Storm Spirit build for patch 7.31b. A very, very good hero right now. Pretty straightforward and very, very strong, even with only a few items. With your Null Talismans and your Orchid, you can run around the map killing people like crazy. It's absolutely ridiculous what this hero can do. So that's my Storm Spirit guide. Thanks everybody for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. As always, join the Discord if you haven't already. We do replay reviews every Friday, community games every Saturday. Join the Patreon if you haven't already, if you want to support me and just see more of these videos into the future, or if you want coaching, I offer coaching there. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.